are these people?
We're going to go to class tonight. So, as I said earlier, for those of you who may have failed history or U.S. history or were asleep during your high school history classes, we're going to talk about Manifest Destiny tonight and how that is assumingly related to Trump. I argue it's a lot bigger than Trump. I would argue in a lot of ways, and even ways that I thought about even today and yesterday as I was prepping for this segment. But we are going to talk about it in terms of, I wouldn't say ideas, but I guess the ideology of Trump and how that kind of relates to the original Manifest Destiny. You were saying?
Well, I just find it funny. My two history teachers growing up through school were super libertarian, so they were all for telling you the government is bad. Right. They're blame them for the way I am now, So, but shout out Kirby and Brinson. What up, coach? You know what I'm saying? Anyway, yeah. So you brought a little cartoon? We get cartoon time?
I did. So again, I don't want to assume, especially for any of you who may be watching this overseas, might not know what Manifest Destiny is. Definitely, if you're an American and went to high school in America, you would know about it.
Living in America.
Those of you who don't, who were asleep during those classes, or if you live overseas, brief 5-minute clip as to what it is, and then we'll get into it.
Manifest Destiny. 2 words that embody the mindset of many Americans during the 1800s as the U.S. expanded in size rapidly, both in miles of new territory and in the population itself. What does the term mean? And what were the impacts of the belief in Manifest Destiny? Let's find out together. While westward expansion began in 1803 with the purchase of the Louisiana Territory from France, it intensified by the mid-1800s, when the United States gained the territory of Florida from Spain in 1819 and annexed Texas in 1845. There was a growing feeling that it was America's destiny to expand westward to the Pacific Ocean, and that nothing would stop the country's quest in achieving that goal. It was in that time when the term Manifest Destiny was first used.
Is the audio super messed up for you, or just me?
It might be just you.
Okay, weird.
In 1845, a newspaper editor named John O'Sullivan coined the phrase Manifest Destiny to describe westward expansion in the United States. He wrote an article titled Annexation in the United States Magazine and Democratic Review after the annexation or adding of Texas to the United States. He said that other countries had been working toward limiting our greatness and checking the fulfillment of our manifest destiny to overspread the continent allotted by Providence for the free development of our yearly multiplying millions. Let's break that down. Manifest destiny was the belief that it was America's right to expand westward toward the Pacific Ocean. The phrase, allotted by Providence, means given by God or a higher power. Lastly, for the free development of our yearly multiplying millions, refers to the desire of Americans to move west and settle in new places as the country's population grew rapidly. Putting all this together, John O'Sullivan was stating that he believed it was America's right, even a right given from God, to expand and settle in new territories in the West. This belief was brought to life in a painting named American Progress by John Gast in 1872. The painting features a woman dressed in white floating towards the west. In her hands, she carries a schoolbook and a telegraph wire. Behind her, a city drenched in light. We can see ships and rail lines following closely behind her. We also see a stagecoach and a covered wagon, a person on horseback, and in the foreground, farmers with oxen and a plow. In front of her, the West is featured as a dark and foreboding place. Animals like buffalo and a bear run away, and indigenous people are being cast from their homelands. The woman represents America, and the very idea of manifest destiny so popular at the time. the artist is most certainly portraying a biased perspective of westward expansion, that it would bring light to the perceived dark spaces of the world through new communication and modern development. The reality was much more complicated, and the impact of Manifest Destiny would be felt far and wide. While some Americans reaped the benefits of westward expansion, establishing homesteads and creating a new life, others were not so lucky. Many American Indian nations were pushed from their homelands and mistreated by the new settlers, along with other groups of people who called the Western lands home. Slavery expanded into the West, and the nation grappled with the addition of new territories and states that allowed slavery within their borders. The idea of Manifest Destiny was so popular, it helped people like James K. Polk win the presidency, and led to the addition of the Oregon Country, the Mexican Cession, and the Gadsden Purchase to the United States. The effect of this time period in American history had far-reaching effects that are still felt to this day, and it's an important subject to spend more time on as you continue in your pursuit of history.
You can stop it here. So yeah. So Manifest Destiny 1.0. And as the cartoon said, it's definitely a subject worth talking about, which we're going to tonight. So fast track into the present day. We're going to read this article. Thank you. From Consortium News. This is written by William J. Astore, I guess is how you say his last name. Where
Astore?
he titled Astore, I guess. Yeah, that makes more sense. Where he titles this article as Trump Reboots Manifest Destiny. The U.S. president wants to return to the world to 1900 when America was nakedly grabbing everything it could. So he's going to mention a few of the Trumpisms here, but
grabbing everything they could. I mean,
phrasing.
So anyway, so William writes.
Astore. Sorry, I have to. I have to do it super Italian.
A few years ago, I came across an old book at an estate sale. Its title caught my eye. Our New Possessions, which you could see in that picture there.
Yes.
Its cover featured the Statue of Liberty against stylized stars and stripes.
What were
those new? Yep.
Ooh.
What were those new possessions? The cover made it quite clear. You can't really necessarily see it on the picture that I got, but basically, Cuba, Hawaii, the Philippines, and Puerto Rico are featured on that cover. The subtitle made it even clearer. A graphic account, descriptive and historical, of the tropic islands of the sea which had fallen under our sway, their cities, people, and commerce, natural resources, and the opportunities they offer to America. What a mouthful. I am still impressed with the notion that tropical peoples falling under our sway offered real Americans amazing opportunities, as did their lands. Consider that Manifest Destiny at its boldest, imperialism unapologetically being celebrated as a new basis for burgeoning American greatness. You can probably see where we're going with this. The year that Imperial Celebration was published, 1898, won't surprise students of U.S. history. America had just won its splendid little imperial war with Spain, an old empire very much in the decline and fall stage of a rich, long, repetitious history. And just then, red-blooded Americans like Rough Rider Teddy Roosevelt were emerging as the inheritors of the conquistador tradition of an often murderously swashbuckling Spanish Empire. Of course, freedom-loving Americans were supposed to know better than to follow in the tradition of old-world imperial exploitation. Nevertheless, cheerleaders and mentors like storyteller Rudyard Kipling were then urging Americans to embrace Europe's civilizing mission, to take up the white man's burden, to spread enlightenment and civilization to the benign, darker-skinned peoples of the tropics. Yet, to cite just one example, U.S. troops dispatched to the Philippines on their civilizing mission quickly resorted to widespread murder and torture, methods of pacification that might even have made Spanish inquisitors blush. That grim reality wasn't lost on Mark Twain and other critics who spoke out against imperialism, American style, with its murderous suppression of Filipino guerrillas and bottomless hypocrisy about its civilizing motives. After his exposure to enlightened all-American empire building, retired Major General Smedley Butler, twice awarded the Medal of Honor, would bluntly write in the 1930s of war as a racket and insist his long career as a Marine had been spent largely in the service of gangster capitalism. Now, there was a plain-speaking American hero. And speaking of plain speaking, or perhaps plain boasting, I suggest we think of Donald Trump as America's retro president from 1898. Isn't it time, America, to reach for our destiny once again? Isn't it time for more tropical and Arctic peoples to be put under our sway? Greenland, Canada, the Panama Canal. You could probably include the Gulf of Mexico.
Yep. Gulf of America, sir? Gulf of America? Oh, it's Gulf of America.
American bullshit.
Yeah.
These and other regions of the globe offer Donald Trump's America so many opportunities, quote unquote. And if we can occupy an area like the Gulf of Mexico, the least we can do is rebrand it the Gulf of America. A lexicograph mission accomplished moment brought with no casualties, which sure beats the calamitous wars of George W. Bush and Barack Obama in this century. Now, here's what I appreciate about Trump: the transparent nature of his greed. He doesn't shroud American imperialism in happy talk. He says it just like they did in 1898.
We're going to go get him for the oil.
Right.
We need the oil. We need the resources under Ukraine.
Right.
The Palestine's free real estate.
Right. Right.
Like,
this is why we keep saying. Right. This is why we keep saying. You know, it's not to say we don't like Republicans here either, but they're at least honest with what they want. You know, Democrats pretend that they're for you, but they want the same thing too. So a little more covert actually in their practice.
Let's see if I can find. Hold on 1 second. I wanted to talk about Gulf of Mexico real quick. I want to find this will work. So at one point, I already had it up. At one point, all of this. So what's down here? What's this bit? We got what? Right.
That's Cuba.
Cuba, correct.
Yeah.
This is the Dick of America, Florida. I'm right there, right in front of the ball sack. Right. You could go right across. This is anyway. So Louisiana, right? We bought that from the French. So, but right here, from all the way this way to over here, right? The bottom Louisiana and whatnot was the Spanish. Right. See, they called all this Mexico. So therefore, this is the Gulf of Mexico. Got it. Okay. I just want people to understand that it used to not all be America there. Right? We bought that shit. So, yee. Okay, glad we're caught up. Glad we got that little side knowledge there. But yes, you were saying?
Yeah. Go back. I want to see if I read. Oh,
I think you did.
See. No, I didn't. I didn't finish that. Now, here's what I appreciate about Trump: the transparent nature of his greed. He doesn't shroud American imperialism with happy talk. He just says it like they did in 1898. It's about resources and profits.
Yep.
As the dedication page to that old book from 1898 put it, to all Americans who go a pioneering in our new possessions and to the people who are there before them. Oh, and pay no attention to that before caveat. We Americans clearly came first then, at least to Donald Trump, come first now, and yes, we come to rule. The world is in our possession, and our benevolence will certainly serve the peoples who were there before us in Greenland or anywhere else, the hellhole of Gaza included, even if we have to torture or kill them in the process of winning their hearts and minds.
No, we wouldn't do that. We would never do that. Collin, we're a nice country. We wouldn't do that.
Right.
Fucking, ugh.
My point is this. Donald Trump doesn't want to return America to the 1950s, where men were men and women were, as the awful joke then went, barefoot, pregnant in the kitchen. No, he wants to return to this country and the world to 1900, when America was unapologetic and nakedly grabbing everything it could. To put it in his brand of locker room talk, Trump wants to grab Mother Earth by the pee, because when you're rich and powerful, when you're a star, you can do anything. It's and white.
Just don't forget there's people that actually grab peas. Just saying. A bit of both. Saying it's one thing,
doing it's another.
Doing it's another. But they, from all accounts, both, all of the above. So, anyway,
it's white male hunter.
Also, what is it? Why is it got to be barefoot and pregnant? What is this, a Tarantino film? First of all, like, ugh.
Women's feet swell when they are pregnant, Reef.
Well, yes, I get that, but like, we didn't have to mention that part. I'm sure Tarantino's gonna make the whole barefoot pregnant scene that everyone's gonna enjoy, right? But Margot Robbie's gonna be in it. It's gonna be fantastic. What is a remake of? Now you got what's the devil baby? Not Sophie's Choice, the other one.
I was thinking Chucky, but
no, this is someone on the chat will know.
Someone in the chat will know.
Someone in the chat will know. I'm dumb. I don't remember things. So
it's white male hunter all over again. Think Teddy Roosevelt and all those animals he manfully slaughtered on safari. Today, we might even add white female hunter, considering that Kristi Noem, the new director of Homeland Security, infamously shot her own dog in a gravel pit because she couldn't train it to behave. It's an America where men are men again, women are women, and trans people are simply defined out of existence while simultaneously being forced out of the U.S. military.
Roll the bean footage. Where's that at?
Holly. Do you think that the armed services discriminate against transsexuals?
Thank God they do, otherwise I'd be fighting in Vietnam.
Damien, I think, is who you're thinking of.
Rosemary's Baby. Cynic got it right.
Oh, okay.
Cynic wins.
For the robber barons of that age, substitute men like Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg to name only the two most famous billionaires of our moment, along with Bezos and their billionaire tech bros. It's a new gilded age, a new age of smash and grab, where the rich get richer and the poor poorer, where the strong do what they will and the weak suffer as they must. Of course, it's highly doubtful Trump can convince Canada to become the 51st state. I mean, Puerto Rico, DC, should get first dibs on that personally, but whatever. What do I know? Denmark doesn't seem remotely interested in selling Greenland to America, and the Panamanians aren't eager to return their canal to all American interlopers and occupiers. Even the Gulf of America remains the Gulf of Mexico to the peoples of the Western Hemisphere. But perhaps Trump and Musk can team up to plant the American flag on Mars. Yeah.
Yep.
While Trump may fail when it comes to
don't forget, boys and girls, how he plans to terraform Mars. Don't forget. People done forgot already, didn't they, Care Bear? They forgot about that. He forgot about you. How many nukes? how many nukes were going to be used? In the hundreds of nukes? Like, not great. Not great ideas. Anyway.
Yeah. While Trump may fail when it comes to any of those specific imperial designs, he's already succeeding famously so where it really matters. With all his imperialist blather about Greenland, Gaza, and the like, what he's really conquering and colonizing is our minds. The man and his ideas are now everywhere. Whatever else you can say about Trump, you can't get rid of him, especially in the mainstream media where he uses so effectively to trumpet, pun intended, his expansionist agenda. Yes, Trump is normalizing imperial conquest again. Yes, naked exploitation is unapologetically destiny again. It's drill, baby, drill, and party like it's 1900, since ideas about global warming due to fossil fuel production and consumption simply didn't exist in that age. It's so retro chic to be chauvinistically selfish, to loot openly, even to commit or enable atrocities under the cover of humanitarian concerns. Think of Gaza and Trump's recent open call for cleansing the region of Palestinians to make way for their betters, the Israelis, to enjoy peace and a beautiful seaside location.
I mean, free real estate.
Right. Regression, by name be Trump. Unabashed greed and unbridled hypocrisy are the selling points once again. Protectionist tariffs are great again. Immigrants, black and brown skinned ones naturally, are depicted as endangering Americans' way of life. Time to get rid of as many illegals as we can. Deport them. Jail them in Cuba. America is for Americans. President Teddy Roosevelt was a big fan of the U.S. Navy's Great White Fleet, the 16 battleships painted white that he sent around the world in 1907. He used it to intimidate recalcitrant powers and impress them with America's growing might and reach. Though the U.S. wasn't quite a military superpower yet, it was already an economic one, and combining military persuasion with economic prowess was an effective tactic to get other countries to toe Washington's line. Today, U.S. military is quite obviously a global one, an imperial one, bent on total dominance of everything: land, sea, air, space, cyberspace, information, narrative. You name it, and our military and its partners in what Ray McGovern calls the mishmash, which includes industry, Congress, intelligence, the media, academic, and think tanks, conspire to seize, occupy, control, and otherwise dominate.
Mm-hmm.
Small wonder that Trump and his operatives within what might be thought as the Mondal imperial state have continued a tradition of seeking either greater budgets for the Pentagon, more and more weapons sales, and the unending construction of new military bases. Contraction is this highly militarized version of disaster imperialism is never an option until, of course, it becomes one. Only growth is to be allowed, commensurate with seemingly bottomless appetites. One example, newly appointed Secretary of Defense Peter Hegseth, and his Project 25 supporters argue that U.S. military spending should equal 5% of America's gross domestic product. With this country's GDP sitting at just under $29 trillion in 2024, that will drive an imperial war budget of $1.45 trillion instead of the nearly $900 billion in this year's Pentagon's budget.
I still think Hegseth sounds like a Cthulian demon, but I mean,
for all he is
Hegseth, like it's very, yes, the slimy Hegseth. Got a lizard person vibe is all I'm saying. You know?
Right. For Hegseth and company, the U.S. military is all about war fighting, and wars, if nothing else, are expensive, so it must embrace and hone its warrior mystique. It matters to him and it's like not at all that since 9/11, if not before then, the U.S. military has owned his war-fighting identity in disastrous wars in Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, and elsewhere. Another example, just before I retired from the U.S. military in 2005, I learned of efforts to create a new military command with sub-Saharan Africa as its focus. We talked about that, I think, almost 2 years ago now, with the bases that the U.S. has built, that many of them we don't even know. We are aware of them, but we don't know exactly where they are because they're so top secret. At first, it seemed like a joke. How is Africa directly related to U.S. national security? Whence the threat? Of course, Africa as a threat wasn't the issue. It was Africa as an arena for U.S. economic exploitation, just as it had been for European countries like Belgium, England, France, and Germany circa 1900, most infamously in the Congo, later exposed as the heart of darkness at the center of a European imperialism that would contribute for the tensions leading to the eruption of World War I in 1914. 2 years after I retired, the U.S. military did indeed form Africa Command, AFRICOM, as its latest combatant command. Today, every sector of the globe has been accounted for by various commands within the Pentagon assigned to 4-star generals and admirals, each in his or her own way as powerful as, once upon a time, the proconsuls of the Roman Empire. With all this background in his own mind at least, Donald Trump doth best ride the world like a colossus. What backs him up is an Republican vision, shared by most Democrats, of an imperial military theoretically unchallengeable in all domains. However, the United States spends $1.45 trillion, or mere $900 billion annually on it. Count on this. In the years to come, that military will be used in, most likely, the stupidest and most violent ways imaginable. If you buy the conceit that Donald Trump is taking America back to 1900, it suggests a likely starting point for the next World War roughly 10 to 15 years in our future. Ever-increasing military spending, calls for mobilization and a turn to the draft, talk of invigorating national decline that would allegedly be reversed by a brace of a new warrior mystique, viewing all competition as a zero-sum game, as zero-sum games that America must win and countries like China must lose. These could act collectively create conditions similar to 1914, a tinderbox of tensions just waiting for the right spark to set the world aflame. The critical difference, of course, is nuclear weapons. Though World War I wasn't the war to end all wars, a World War III fought between the US and its allies and China and or Russia and their allies promises to be that last war. There's nothing like a few dozen thermonuclear weapons to settle accounts, as in ending most life on planet Earth. In an age of weapons of mass destruction and a widespread modernization, quote unquote, jaw, as in compromise and cooperation through conversation, is the only sane choice when war looms. Dominance through destruction must give way to détente through dialogue. Can the Trump administration advance progress towards peace instead of letting us regress into war? Mr. President, here's the real art of the deal. Rather than turning the calendar back to 1900, your goal should be to turn the atomic clock back to several hours, if not days or weeks, before midnight. That clock currently sits at a perilous 98 seconds to midnight, or global nuclear war. With every fiber of your being, your goal should be to guarantee that we'll never strike that ungodly hour. For surely, even the most deluded strongman shouldn't wish his manifest destiny to be ruling over an empire of the dead. Interesting article, I would argue. Any thoughts?
Well, I mean, yes, definitely manifest destiny, similar to Zionism, right? Is a classic tool for imperialists. So, you know, like, and all of the above are part of the problem. So, I mean, it's literally manifest destiny for the Israelis too. They're wanting to go from shore to shore. So,
right,
by order of their God, how is that not the same? You know,
right. I've said this many times. It's like
Which, when
What's
you go
happening
and
in
ask,
Gaza is basically an Israeli version of Manifest Destiny.
go ask
Said that
Leonard
many times.
Peltier if he thinks there's parallels right now. You know,
Mhm.
I'm betting you he would.
Right.
So, but yeah, which I always find it funny, the people who like have the "Don't Tread on Me" patches, but then
Mhm.
when people make sure they don't get tread on, they're somehow arrested and kept in jail for fucking forever and a day, even though they were innocent.
Mhm.
You know, still has to be under house arrest, an 80-year-old man, you know,
Right.
because
Um,
he good with a trigger finger. It's just you know, terrible things. Anyway,
the only I wouldn't say critique, but the only thing that I would say regarding the article is that he mentions that Trump, I don't think he meant this in this way, but I can see why many people would interpret it this way, especially if you're a liberal. And like, if you read this article, it's like, yeah, Trump. This does not start with Trump. You're going to talk about that a lot later. I would argue that a lot of this stuff has been in the background for decades. It's just, as I said, Trump is a lot more open about it. He's a lot more, as the article stated, more transparent with his intentions, which in a way is kind of refreshing. And I think, honestly, that's what people like about him, is that he's well, in that regard. Like, he's no nonsense. He kind of tells it as it is. Some of it. At least for the things where he gets the benefit and to show his prowess, I guess, if you want to call it that. Like, he's very much big man on campus deal. But
Jeff Bezos came, Bill Gates came, Mark Zuckerberg came. Many of them came numerous times. The bankers have all come. Everybody's coming.
But again, I would argue this Trump is only benefiting from what has come before. He's benefiting from what Biden, and in a lot of ways Obama, had kind of set in place, where he's able to utilize and exploit for his own, I'd argue, his own enrichment, and the enrichment, as we see now, of like Musk, Zuckerberg, and others, the military-industrial complex in particular. You know,
Who are these people?
Hey, we got a dono. Appreciate that, cookies. Here's a small tip. Go buy yourselves candy bars. Dope. I appreciate it. 2 eggs. It'll be 2 eggs, probably.
Right. 2 eggs. No, you could buy, 2 cartons of eggs if you're
maybe.
lucky.
Depends on how bad it gets, you know?
Right. But I don't know. Like, but I liked what he said. It's not necessarily a manifest destiny in terms of, well, it's that.
Yeah.
But I think what is more powerful is of the mind, in terms of this appearance of America being like this overreaching superpower, where it's not just for the sake of overtaking land. It's now the idea of overtaking your mind, and now that we have the technology, especially, to be able to do that with, like, and I think we've been seeing this, you know, like, given like 2016 onwards. But I think it's still more of the idea of like how, I think the realization now is how globally we're more connected than ever. People are able to kind of make the dots a lot easier in terms of, oh shit, this is like, we see the imperialism. Like, another way, if you want to kind of bring it down even further, gentrification, if you want to kind of put it that way, like, in a local sense. Like, but I think people are able to connect the dots way easier, and are able to critique a lot of this actions a lot more, which is why they're trying to suppress it in schools. We're going to talk about that later. So,
Yeah.
So you're right. Actually, all our articles kind of connect to each other tonight. I'm sure you kind of low key kind of did that on purpose.
We
Like,
try around here, you know. We
because
put the time in.
I wasn't necessarily thinking of that, but yeah, yeah. I'll just say this, like,
And as the 34th rule of acquisition states, peace is good for business.
That's the 35th rule.
Oh, you're right. What's the 34th?
War is good for business. It's easy to get them confused.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. War is good for business. So, but as the article kind of states, it's not just the land grab that that I think we just kind of think of immediately when we think of destiny. It's now.
You mean there's
evolved.
nuance? You mean there's nuance, Care Bear? There's multiple like motivations.
Yeah.
You okay?
Yes, but
okay.
Yeah, but the argument, but it's also the manifest destiny of the mind, and I think in a lot of ways, kind of breaking away from that idea because
Decolonize your mind. You say? I think I've heard that
Yeah.
before.
Yeah,
You know?
because that's kind of what, especially in this country, well, you can argue in the West, just how we're taught, like almost in the idea of like we're conquering these lands as a good thing and not often thinking about it in terms of the other, of the exploitation and the oppression we put them under for their resources and for their capital that we exploit. So I think now we are able to make those connections a lot clearer now. And that's the war that I think this administration in particular is trying to fight against. But again, I would argue Democrats, they may not say that openly, but they more covertly kind of also agree because they also are embedded in these conglomerates as well that feed their bank accounts so that they're able to perpetuate a lot of these same things too, even though they might tell you otherwise. So it's a war on the earth, as it is a war in our psyche that I think we have to be careful about.
Yep. Agreed. Ugh.
And crown thy good into temptation, but deliver us from the twilight. Amen.
Yeah. All right.
Going to the book.
The Book of Collin. Dude, I actually kind of want to, if you just go through all of his like recorded stuff, you totally could like actually get Book of Collin with chapter and verse. You know, I'd be okay with that. I would purchase that novel. Thank you very much. I'd get it leather bound. It'd be the biggest book on my shelf, dude. Are you kidding me? You know, if you want to buy the Book of Collin, you can scan this like one easy payment of $19.95. Like, anyway, you know, if you want to keep the lights on over here, you can go to co-fi.com/indienewsnetwork, scan that QR code on your screen or always in the description below. You know, we appreciate it, but we get it. Times are tough. The rich get richer, as they say, but you know, just like and subscribe. Help fight suppression. Only you can help fight those. So leave a comment. Let us know what you think. But otherwise, subscribe. And thanks for watching.